Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Uber Cordero Show. Today we have a very interesting guest. With us is Darlene Akoth Ambugo, who is an environmentalist, a farmer, a speaker, and just a very wonderful human being who has graciously allowed herself to share her story with us at the Uber Cordero Show. So we are excited to meet you. Good morning, Akoth. How are you doing?
Good morning, Uba. I'm doing well. How are you?
Hadi Mavera, Akoth. Okay.
It feels good. Amor.
Yeah. So, Akoth, you're the founder and CEO of Dala Maler. It's an organization that's doing a lot of work in Newark, New Jersey, as well as Migori, Kenya. So we want to know about your organization and your goals and projects, and tell us how you got into environmentalism and how it connects to your Pan Africanism and all that stuff that you do. That's amazing. We want to know about that and the current projects that you are doing as well.
That's wonderful. So I'll begin by, I think, fixing a few things because I don't want to mislead people.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Uh, Dala Maler,
yeah,
really, it's a homestead.
yeah.
It's a piece of land that I bought a few years ago back home in Kenya.
Mm,
And in that space, I'm creating a homestead, which is a space for me to live
mm-hmm,
um, and practice what it is that I'm doing, which a lot of it is sustainable farming, agriculture, and I want the space to teach people to be a learning center. So I wanted to correct that because people may go online and start researching for an organization. Right now, Akoth is the organization together with another team member called Stacy. She's back home in Kenya. So that is Dala Maler. And Dala Maler, being that it's only Akoth, even here in Newark, what I'm doing is just continuing in my knowledge and learning about sustainable farming, um, indigenous earthworks, and yeah, the journey to environmentalist, it wasn't a straight path.
mm.
It's taken many years of experimenting, living in some farms, and working together with communities of farmers. How Newark comes into the picture is that Newark was the foundations. Newark is the community I landed in where I met other people doing this work. So it's a foundational step in helping me learn and also having a network of other people doing the same thing and growing together. So that's where Newark comes in. But the majority of the work is geared towards Kenya. We just began last year basically on an empty piece of land. So the work is going on in Kenya.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, even if it's just individual work,
Yes.
it's often understated how some of the bigger organizations start with individual agency, like your
Mm,
commitment towards a certain kind of project. So,
mm.
what inspired you to create Dala Malaya?
Realizing that I knew so little
Mm,
about something that is so vital and crucial for human life, I got to a point where I wanted to be the healthiest,
mm,
the happiest, and the most impactful. And with all my work volunteering in farms and with other gardens, I realized that I'm happy outside.
mm.
I'm so happy outside, playing in the soil. It's a free living, it's a free way of existing. And then I realized I didn't know how to be outside. It's something that's not taught. We are not taught how to farm, how to grow food, what are the best practices. And I grew up in a farming community like many people in rural Africa. Many people are subsistence farmers. My parents are subsistence farmers. And growing up, I wasn't interested in farming. You know, I saw them farm, I went and helped them occasionally, but the interest was not there. The interest came about many, many years later now as I was in the US. and learning about community gardens, spending time on YouTube. And really, it started off with just this romantic idea of, oh, this is the life that I want to live. I want to be barefoot outside every day in the sun, in the rain. It's a life that feels connected, and to know where my food source comes from, to participate actively in its production, in the cooking of the meal, and to share that knowledge. So I went back to a community that is already doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't here reinventing the wheel. I'm walking into a space where people are already, they already have these practices, and I'm a student.
Wow, that's a
Um,
lot. That's a lot. It seems to me that part of this goal is sort of like self-healing.
yes.
It's cathartic in a way that it allows you to to go back to your inner child and regrow yourself
Mm.
in a way that might have been impossible had you not made an intentional effort towards connecting how your childhood is connected to the sense of happiness that you experience as an adult.
Mm. Exactly. And, you know, I have a lot of family all over the world, but I have a lot of family and friends in the United States. So it doesn't really make sense going, yes, Kenya is my country of origin. But a lot of the connections that I have, unfortunately, many of them, you know, it's not a good or a bad thing, but many of them are outside of Kenya. So I'm moving back to start creating new connections or delving deeper into other connections that hadn't been nurtured because we don't live in close proximity to each other. But yeah, the initial, when I first started, it was like, oh, you know, we all know about what's going on with the weather. We all know, are aware of climate change and its impact on many communities, and especially in rural communities, they seem to be hit hardest because they don't have a lot of resources and infrastructures in place to
Mm,
support when there are such huge climatic events. Um, but I started with this notion of wanting to change the world, you know, doing my little thing in changing the world and making a difference. You don't, I'm the one being changed in this process. I got to learn the earth will take care of itself, whether if it means that the humans burn it to the ground. We are here for a very short period of time. Um, and while our impact really, really, really matters, it's also important to enjoy the process. Even as somebody who is making change, it's very important to enjoy the process so it doesn't all become work and activism, because that does eat away at the human soul. And for me, going into this was to restore some of that childlike play and wonder and bring that to a society that's getting more and more technical, more and more involved in the headspace,
mm, mm,
and to give us a break and a step out from a tech-driven world into the peace and serenity that comes from being in natural spaces.
mm. I love your work, Akoth. So, as an educator, one of the classes I teach is first year experience for students, and we introduce them. It's topical theme, so
Mhm.
every year can have a different topic. But the last 3 years we've been talking
Mhm.
about climate change, and most of
Yeah,
the things that the student kind of tend to talk about is what can I do?
yeah,
Where is the agency? It seems to be so much about doom and gloom and
yeah.
sadness and destruction. So where is the individual agency? I seem to be hearing from you is that part of being an agent of change is also self-healing by doing things that are really small in micro level and might seem not changing, but they do change communities, provide food, provide healing, give you a space to be outside, which is itself fascinating enough.
Exactly.
Yeah. So your work is big. I'm also interested in um your path is definitely fascinating, you know. But can you walk us through your journey from childhood
Yeah.
and then to returning home and
Yes.
founding this organization that is still sole proprietorship, but
Yeah.
has like a spread in different spaces of the world, being Newark, New Jersey, and then Migori, Western Kenya.
Yes.
Um, and so part of it's telling us your journey, and then the second part is telling us how it connects to this the personality of yours, which is Black internationalism.
Mm.
All right. So those two things I'm interested in.
Okay, let's get real.
Yeah.
Uh, I left Kenya really young. I was 12 years old, right? And I'm coming from a very rural community to London,
Mm,
but not just any part of London. I'm going to the creme de la creme part of London, you know, where the wealthiest and the mightiest live. And I was there for only 2 years. The first 2 years I spent discovering, finding my place
mm,
in a Western world as a 12-year-old
mm,
without your family and everything that you know and hold dear, you know. So I have not so many memories in that space, but I can say that in London, what helped me out of my shell as a young immigrant was sports. My mastery of the English language was, you know, I had no mastery. Okay, so with your peers, you're sticking out. I was a tomboy, used to climbing trees, you know,
mm,
playing outside
mm,
with my classmates and friends in the village. And it was a completely different world. And for many immigrants, even when they come as adults, it's still a new world. But as a child, I don't know what that does to you. And I think you begin by wanting first and foremost to not be othered, to not be different. So my transformations, one of the first ones was losing my language,
mm,
or rather refusing to speak my language, which in this case is Luo.
mm,
And in one of the phone calls with one of my sisters who was in the US at the time, she would call and speak to me in Luo,
mm,
and I'd respond in English. So one time she just told me, "Look, your mother does not speak English. When she calls you, are you going to tell her, 'Hey, mom, I can't hear you'?" And that was the light bulb.
mm,
That's when I woke up and realized, you know, I have an identity, and this identity is African.
mm,
Now, what African meant in that time, I just associated it with backwardness and poverty, you know, because I'm in a new world and everything that I'm seeing, it's new, it's shiny, it's glittering. The houses are big, you know, there are lights. We didn't have lights at home
mm,
during that time. Um, we didn't have running water. So just those basic things, you know, you move to this world and you're enamored by them. So I was enamored by the West. Fast forward, my 2 years finished there, having gotten into myself a little bit as
mm,
an African girl and gotten into my body,
mm,
into this black body. And through sports, because you stood out, I was poked fun of, and I found running and I won a race. And I was like,
yeah.
I have power. I
Mm,
have something that can get people's attention on me, but in a positive way.
mm,
So the experience in London ended because the boarding school closed out, shut down. There were too few of us, and there were just too many resources being spent on this little bunch of international students that were probably not even paying, you know. So
mhm,
it was a loss. And I came to the US, and in the US, I go to another beautiful school in St. Louis, also a very privileged space, you know, where I'm not in touch with the reality of the rest of America.
Mm.
I'm not in touch with the reality of Black life in America, brown lives in America, immigrants' lives in America. And if I am, it's from a very convoluted space. Because
Mm-hmm.
even my other immigrant friends and family that I was visiting, they were also equally in spaces, you know, in these spaces. They were not getting the true American experience. It is a version of the American experience, but it's not the total
Mm.
American experience. So I come to the US a bit more self aware,
Mm.
speaking with a full British accent.
Mm.
Um, Neither here nor there,
Mm.
just different. And I think I owned it. I owned that I was different. By the time I was coming, this is now my junior year of high school. I owned the difference. I'm here in a space with other international students, some coming straight from home and having that previous experience in London. I was able to appreciate where they were. I was able to appreciate the fact that they're coming straight from home, this pure, with their accents fully fledged on not being understood, you know. So then begins the advocacy work of just standing up as
Mm.
a confident Black person, because you realize that is never going to change. So at some point, we need to wear our shoes as
Mm.
other people in a world that is not ours. We are guests here, but we need to be heard. We need to be listened to. We need to communicate our thoughts. We need to share our food, our cultures, and our languages. So in high school, I began waking up, okay? I began blossoming, and then I was blessed to go to a college that had quite a vast number of international students from all over the African continent and Europeans and, you know, South Americans. It really didn't matter, but the large number of African students just further instilled in me that love, because now I'm learning firsthand from my West African friends. We are sharing food, we are sharing stories, we are coming to know what are so close and unique to us as Africans, and what are those aspects that are also very different.
Mm.
So that's how I came to be. It's just been the shifts, the migratory journey has also played a role in who I am and how I view the world and my role in the world. Yeah.
Yes, and your athleticism didn't stop. So you also ran track at college and
Yeah.
experimented with theater and also fashion and cinema. So so even
Everything.
yeah, everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who, look, if it's not going to hurt me, it's a
Mm.
new experience, I jump in. I just don't like things that are going to harm me. But I was in a space where all the things I was getting into were for my benefit. You know,
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite sports up to now is lacrosse.
Mm.
You don't see Black people playing lacrosse. Uba, you don't see Black people playing lacrosse. Go look at the teams. Okay.
No, 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 that's
I
such an
love,
Ivy League sport.
you know, yeah,
Yeah.
that was something I got from London. Um, but all of these experiences have shaped me. There is not a single one that I will remove.
Okay.
No.
Wow, that's just an amazing background. So I just we want to build up on that, but I'm
Yes.
interested in what Africa means to me. You've already indicated there's the rootedness, the love, and you are so totally in yourself. And now you're giving back by teaching subsistence farming, which if you think about it now, everybody's like, you don't want to do that. You want to do mechanized farming, but you are going back to do that. So what is the place of Africa to you? And is there a distinction between Africa and Blackness? What do these things mean to you in general? So it's a heavy question, but you can answer it wherever you think, just so we know you
It, it,
better.
it's a it's a difficult question, For me, I don't think there's a distinction.
Yeah.
I think it's, being African, Black,
Mm,
we are called that because of the color, but we know no one is truly Black, you know. Um, Africans, we are called that because of where we are located geographically and that landmass of
mm,
Africa that has a lot of us. But right now, you have Africans all over.
mm,
So for me, it's a spiritual thing. It's just something unique. I can meet an African in China,
mm,
and I'm sure we'll have things to talk about. The essence of Blackness, it's just a spiritual thing that I think Africans are still grounded to, and it may also be, it may not be an African thing, Uba. It may just be a human thing, but the other societies may have got lost touch with because of the very rapid technological advancements that those societies have encountered. Because I'm telling you, here in the US, a few years ago, I got the chance to go up to an Indian reservation, a Lakota reservation in South Dakota.
mm,
I was with my people. There were not that many people with my shade, with my tone,
mm,
but the cultures, the practices, I felt like I was with my kin folk. Okay? Same thing, I was in Guatemala, in a little town called Lake Atitlan.
mm,
And as I just go walking around being myself, I happened by an elder's home. This woman was cooking her food in her fire, making tortillas with corn the same way I do at home. Maybe not making corn in that fashion. So you find that there are so many things, so many similarities um, in the world. So I think what Africa still has, and some areas of Africa more than others, is a connection to the earth.
mm, mm.
And this is getting wiped away very fast.
That's really
So,
deep to think about it because it's really profound what you just said, the connection to art.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and it's something that's happening all over the world. It's not just Africa, is not the only place that is losing it. In our quest to develop, in our quest to modernize, we are losing so much, and it's not an African problem. But Africa still has a unique role in that we are still connected in some way. You see, like you right now,
Mm,
even a Kenyan who lives in Nairobi, they still
mm,
have, for many of them, they still have their rural homes.
mm,
And in those rural spaces, they still have access to some of these ancient traditions.
mm, mm,
An American just knows their home, which is the house that was purchased. You still have an ancestral lineage that you can trail down to a location.
mm, mm. That's privilege.
It's privilege. It's a beautiful privilege. It's a gift.
Yeah. Talking about the connection, I went to a Latin party a few weeks
Mm-hmm,
ago.
mm-hmm,
It was like a multi-generational party, Mexican
mm-hmm.
household, and I mean, I was just dancing and eating.
Uh-huh.
Grandmother was hugging me. I just felt at ease, and for a moment, I was
Mm-hmm.
just feeling like I was in Western Kenya. The kids were calling me uncle. Ah, like a negro uncle, the
Yeah.
girl's uncle, like the black uncle.
Yes.
I was just feeling so much, and I felt really at ease. So there's a human connection to this.
Mm.
That is fundamental. which you gain, you as you suggest, by grounding yourself on the earth, which
Mm,
is really like what you are all about.
mm.
All right, so yeah, let's. Why do you believe farming is such a powerful tool for people to embrace? Why do you think getting dirty is something we need to be doing more?
All of us. Uber, you eat how many times a day?
I'm trying to cut it, but I really love food. I can eat even 4, 5 times a day. Like every time I see it, I can't stop myself. But I'm trying to restrict myself to 3 meals a day.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
my other work, I'm a
yeah,
caregiver. I'm a caregiver, you know?
yeah.
And without giving the body so much emphasis,
Mm,
it does matter how we eat.
mm,
It does matter how we take care of ourselves. It's a part of loving yourself. It's a
mm.
part of honoring this temple, the body. And it's the one thing you will do probably until you can't feed yourself anymore is eat.
Is eat, yeah.
That is everyone on this planet from the time the child is born, they suckle on their breast, on their
Mm,
mother's breast. So we are not about to separate ourselves from food anytime soon.
mm, mm,
Okay,
mm,
unless
mm,
you want to be an airtarian, you can eat air. There are people who can survive without food, but a lot of us haven't reached there. And I wanted to know, what was I consuming? When I
mm,
was
mm,
home, I knew what I was consuming because I harvested the vegetables from my mother's kitchen garden. I went to the market to buy meat from the butcher. The only things I didn't know how are processed were the salt, sugar, oil, the processed stuff. But the food itself, I knew where it was coming from for the most part. My experience in America, I did not know me, I was eating. You go to the grocery store, you buy your food. So there's a huge disconnect. And I knew I was disconnected because when I was home before coming here, I could slaughter a chicken without any feelings. This was food.
mm,
But here we are so used to you go and you buy your packaged meat that when I went back home, I could not slaughter chicken anymore. But yet I consume a lot more meat over here than I do at home. I started asking myself those questions because I needed to know for me so I can play an active role in my life and my health choices. So I believe that farming is important because it reconnects us. Um, we are not giving the earth anything. The earth is giving us a lot. It's giving us health. It's giving us peace, peaceful state of mind. It's giving us balance. Right now, you see, we are encouraged to be outside,
mm, mm,
to go to nature, to take forest walks and baths. There is something there, and that thing that nature gives us, it's in us. We are not different. We are not different. So I think I had been living a life that there were two completely different worlds. The natural world was different than the world that I was living every day. Nature was something I went to, it wasn't something that was in me. So I came to farm because it was one way of
mm,
learning about my relationship. And now, as it has evolved, it is bigger than growing food for me.
mm, mm. It's bigger than
It is,
growing.
it's bigger than growing food. When I was home these past 10 months, I was out in the sun 9, 10 hours a day. And Uber, there's a difference. There's a difference in how you feel. There's a huge difference in how you move. There's a difference in what you value
Mm,
when you spend that much time outside.
Hmm.
There is a difference.
There's a difference.
Yes. There's a difference. So I encourage people to, yes, grow food so you know where your food is coming from. So you have some level of control and choice. And here in the US, there are a lot more farmers markets popping up, in urban cities or urban centers. There's a lot more urban communal gardens popping up as well. So we are waking up, and for me, some of it is just basic common sense. I'm home. There are times we cook with fire to save energy. Okay? We draw water from the well sometimes because water can run out in the house. We go to the river to bathe and wash your clothes. Right now, where you are, if your water ran out, if water was not in the stores, I'm not one of these doomers, the end of the world is coming, but literally look at COVID, how people hoarded things. Right now, if you run out of water for whatever reason, if your power goes out for whatever reason, okay, assuming it happens in the winter, yeah? How are we going to survive? And that's not just you alone. You have millions of people living here on these grounds. How are people going to survive? It's going to be chaotic.
You're making the argument that being grounded on earth is also a way to survive catastrophe, I imagine.
And it's the way our people all over the world lived. It's just now, these last few years, that our lives are so much, there's such a huge separation.
I'm interested in developing this as it relate to gender. Okay. How have you embraced femininity in this kind of work? Because climate discourse, climate policy, and sustainable farming is often like the theories and the practitioners and the CEOs, they tend to be men, mostly men from privileged spaces. So where's the place of femininity for yourself as a Akoth Ambugo, but also for the kind of work you're engaged in?
And I'll say this here, I'm not a feminist.
Yeah.
I'm a womanist.
Yeah.
I'm aware that I live in two different worlds, the West and the Sun Belt, where roles vary greatly. But even here in the West, where you can say they've achieved some level of gender equality, there are still roles that just naturally we gravitate towards as women. And being home challenged me a lot, and I had to toss out a lot of the feminist garbage out, and realize when women band together, even the roles, they stop being a burden. And some of those roles, when looked at under the Western model, when you're living in a Western model, they can be a burden. And we are adopting the Western model at home. My ideal life, Uber, would be roaming around in a home somewhere, barefoot, carrying my babies with a team of several other women and children to help me raise them, go about living that life, grow our food, eat our food, and stop the gender wars. It's a balanced life. It's a peaceful life as long as it's connected to the earth. When the connection to the earth is removed, that's when the stress comes in. Because it stops being life and just living, it becomes work. And when it becomes work, the question of fairness has to be answered. That being said, societies need to change. Even culture needs to change. People need to be helped. Women need help. Men need help too. So we can help each other. They're just qualities and traits that I bring to the work that I'm doing as a woman that someone else, a man, may not be able to bring. Okay. So, for instance, at Dala Maler, there are some jobs I'm not doing. There are some things I refuse to do, like digging trenches, because they wear you out and you get exhausted. And when I have youths who have eaten tons of ugali and they have this extra energy to help me, why not ask? So I can retain my energy in maybe fixing them a meal and taking that gender role and, yes, stereotypical gender role, cook for them while they help me dig trenches.
It's not about question of fairness, it's a question of strategy and how well you use your talents. So when you're saying that in Western society, when we make some of what we experience as womanhood here, you make it look like who's doing this? We gotta be 50-50, etc. Then we think about it as work, but it's really just life. It's what you're trying.
Yeah, but people need to be fair, because on that same token, I've had experiences at home that have not been fair, that have left me feeling like a slave. Because people aren't pulling themselves up. Now that just goes to individuals. It's just an individual thing. You're either somebody who sees and does and helps, or you're not. So I also had that experience, and I'm not going to now say that, oh, the scales are not balanced. Yeah, there are instances where the scales are not balanced. Absolutely. And I feel the boy child is really adored in our African system.
Yeah, I know. It's awful, right?
It's awful.
Yeah.
So as a woman, that's also where I come through in my beliefs. I speak. When I see something that is not right, I say it. I challenge even those old people with the old mentalities that are not blessing us. I challenge them.
Oh wow, that's deep, Akoth. Just this section about femininity is deep. Okay, I want to ask you about something that a lot of people are experiencing now, which is mental health. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're talking about the totality of Western experience and work culture, and how it's now populating the whole world, and everybody is adopting that framework. But it comes with some of the challenges, which is also mental health issues. How does your work engage with this conversation about mental wellness and other related areas? If you care to elaborate a little bit.
It is the antidote.
It's the antidote. Yeah.
It's medicine. I'm not one who wants to. I went through a phase. There was a phase when everybody was talking about their traumas. Oh, I'm so traumatized. My childhood, this. I got to that phase where I was starting to look at everything from the standpoint of, oh, what could have happened in my childhood to make me who I am? Especially when analyzing the not so great aspects. Okay, we are humans. It's up and down. Right? So the areas where we feel we haven't quite achieved, we haven't reached where we are supposed to be, we tend to look at them critically.
Yeah.
And the last couple of years and up to now, the conversation about trauma is so huge. And connecting these to people's childhoods their environments. I'm not dismissing that all of these things have an impact, but I think the way life is, the life that we live right now, and how we engage with the world is actually a bigger contributing factor to
Mm-hmm.
mental health. And we spend so much time inside. We spend so much time out without human interaction on the screens. We consume so much information that I don't know if our brain can process all of it. And yet we are not using our bodies. So our brains are extremely engaged with concepts and what's going on in the world. Our brains are engaged, but our bodies, unfortunately, are idle. For many people, these are blanket statements. Of course, every individual has their life. There are people who are very active, but you can say that for a majority. Okay, now take this to children. Think of your childhood and what you were doing when you were a child versus what you're doing now.
Mm.
And then look around you, even for your existing children, your friends. Just look at your immediate circle and look at that life. And you let me know if people will be mentally well
Mm. Mm.
with the life that we're living right now.
Mm.
So the outside space, it helps, it's medicine in so many ways. Number one, when I'm out there digging, I can't be on my phone at the same time.
Mm.
Many times I'm without Wi-Fi or connection. So technologically, I'm getting dumber and dumber and dumber. And for a while there, I was worried that I would be cut off. But hey, it's the same way I picked it up very quickly. I didn't grow up with technology. I don't have to worry about losing out because what I'm benefiting from being disconnected from that on the earth
Mm.
is so much greater that I can't make a comparison. So this
Mm.
work that I'm doing, it forces you to relate to people. It forces you to think about something other than yourself. It forces you to think of bigger concepts for the world. And then it quiets you too. Because many times I would wake up before the sun rises. And you're there before things wake up. You see the sun come up. You see other life in action. And you realize, wow, there's a whole team of relatives here. The trees have a song, the birds have a song, the waters have a song, the wind has a song, the earth has a song, it has a smell, it has a texture, and you're in touch with all of this. It's a visceral, it's life. And I think what I would like for Dala Maler to be is a bridge for people who are tired of this, who need a complete getaway so they can access that.
Mm. Mm.
Just come and disconnect and realize you're fine. The world won't fall apart because you've decided to connect. This is the makeup of our world. It is us and everything else that's in it, not just humans. You know, humans, we've kind of put ourselves on top of everything else.
I want to ask you a question on
Mm-hmm.
one is a question on one financial security and how much this operation will cost wherever any choice that people make and how to include outside and sustainable lifestyle in it. The second one
Mm-hmm.
is about privilege. How much of your work is a function of your privileges?
I'm very privileged
Yeah,
in the most beautiful way,
yeah.
but it's also been a lot of sacrifices. My privilege comes with having 2 passports.
Mm.
It opens the door to any country.
Mm.
Having 1 passport that belongs to a global superpower, right?
Mm.
The doors are open.
Mm.
That's the privilege from that end.
Mm.
It means I have access to maybe jobs that bring me financial security that someone else may not have had, but sacrifice in that I'm uprooting. I'm uprooting from 20 plus years of connections. So that is a cost. That's a cost. Like most of my people are outside of Kenya. A few still are in Kenya, but I'm having to rebuild new relationships. Okay. So that's a cost I was willing to take. But again, I still have this privilege of a passport where I can come and see those people. So it's not like a complete cut off feed. I'm here right now. I'm in the US right now for a
Mm.
few months, you know? So it's not something I'm crying about. There is privilege, but a privilege that I have chosen to accept and use it wisely. Finances of the whole operation, it's tough, but that's not going like the finances are hard because what we're doing right now isn't bringing an income.
Mm.
So it's a lot of it coming from my savings.
Mm.
Okay, to do the work, to build some structures. I need a house there so I can, when it's raining, I'm fine camping, and we camp there a lot.
Mm.
Okay, but just to keep me from the elements.
Yeah.
And all those things, I believe they will come. But Uber, I want to step away from the financial model that we have right now.
Mm.
I'd rather, and I know this is very romantic and it's probably not going to happen, but my ideal society would be bartering and trading and just dropping off a lot of the ties that we have to these financial systems of I'm not going to be able to live and meet my needs if I
Mm.
don't have a regular job. So the fears have been alleviated. Some of them are still there, okay, because it's such a huge part of living in today's society. Money is an engine. I love money. I want money to come to me in unlimited forms because I know I'll do great things with that money. um, but not in the model where I'm doing something that does not fulfill my heart's call. So
That's
it's
really.
a sacrifice because I know many people who they long, they wish. I've met elders tell me, Akoth, you're doing something that I don't think I'd have the courage to do. And some of these people are brilliant people with careers that for me feel like they've been very impactful and on the high there in terms of accolades. But they still come and say, you're choosing your heart. We need more of that. We need more of that. So it helps that I also don't have a lot of responsibilities. I know if I had children right now, I may have been able to. It means my partner and I being on the same page.
Yeah.
And jumping on the same mission. And that's not easy to find.
That's not easy to find.
Mm.
Well, we could talk all day. There's a lot to unpack in what you talked about there. Just one comment I have on that is when it comes to making choices about situations that require change, that require some kind of advocacy and commitment towards change, it often involves sacrifice. Now, the one that I mostly think about is Nelson Mandela. He was a lawyer in the 60s. he could have done very well in apartheid South Africa, being a lawyer,
Mm.
but he chose to be committed towards, the freedom of majority of South Africans, and that included almost 30 years in prison and loss of a legal license, and he was condemned, and his family kind of disappeared. But we still remember him for the choices, even as we remember him for his mistakes too. So yeah, what you're doing is really big. A few people in the world get to make the choice to abandon a very comfortable middle class life in the West
Mm.
to a rural life in which you're working with your hand. So thank you so much for sharing your time and your story with us. It's been a blast. It's given me a lot of thoughts today, and I just want to ask you if you have one final word to leave our audience with.
Do it.
Do it.
Just do it. It's crazy. It's gonna be wild. They're going to call you crazy. They call me crazy. Yes, crazy makes change. Crazy fixes problems. And our world right now needs that. We are living with all the things good and bad going on. I still believe that we are living at the most fascinating time in human history where there's so much going on. And we have technology, it's at its highest right now. We have youth that are educated. You have people who are cared because the globe is connected where I can see the challenges of my brothers and sisters in another opposite corner of the world and be aware of their challenges. So we live in a time that we can act. We can act. So do it. Don't be scared. You'll find your team, you'll find your village, you'll find people to support you, you'll create new communities, and life will have meaning. And we need that at a time where there's a lot of problems, mental, physical, what have you. We need crazy people to go out there and do crazy things that are not harming us, they're not harming the world, they're not harming people. As long as their solutions, go and act on your crazy. That's it.
Thank you very much, Akoth. It's been a blast. It's been a blast. And thank you for tuning in at the show. Hopefully, we get another riveting conversation next week. All right. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks.